Hi, my name's Josh and I'm a guitar tutor for South Lanarkshire Leisure and Culture, and today is the final lesson of the beginner's guitar chords course, and we're just going to be covering two of the chords we actually learned at the beginning of the course, but I'm going to show you a harder way of playing them, and then we're going to put them together, three of these chords to play 500 Miles by the Proclaimers. So if you remember way back at the beginning of the course, the first chord we learned was this G chord, where your third finger was in the third fret of the bottom string, the high E string, and you strummed the four strings. So what we're actually going to do is, this is only sort of half of the G chord, and the reason we only learned half was because it was the very first chord we learned. So I'm going to actually show you the full version today. Now it starts off the same, where you put that same third finger on the third fret of the E string, but this time you're going to stretch your middle finger all the way up to the third fret of the low E string, so the topmost string. So you've got your third finger on the third fret of the first string, the high E string, and then you've got your middle finger on the third fret of the low E string. Okay, so both on the third frets of both the E strings, and then you're going to take your first finger and you're going to add that to the second fret of the A string. Okay, so your first finger is going to go in the second fret of the A string. So it's quite a stretch, this chord shape. That's why we didn't learn it quite like this at the beginning. But now if you've been able to play all the other chords in the course, this shouldn't be too difficult, and with some practice you'll be able to get this stretch. Okay. Now, as we're before in the G string, the G chord, sorry, we just strummed four strings. Now we've added in these two fingers, we're going to strum all the strings. Okay? So, one more time, that's just the same as before. Your third finger on the third fret of the E string, just the bottom string. And then you're going to stretch your middle finger all the way up to the third fret of the E string, the low E string. So both fingers on the third frets of the E strings, and then you're going to add your first finger onto the second fret of the A string, and you're going to strum all the strings. Okay, so try that, and then as normal, strum it down 4 times, and then just take your hand off the shape. Okay, and then just try and do it again. So third finger on the third fret of the E string, stretch your second finger all the way to the top, put that in the third fret of the other E string, and then add your first finger onto the second fret of the A string, and you're just going to strum all the strings. Now you might feel a bit of a stretch because we've not really had to stretch our fingers as much with any other chord as we are for this chord. But with some practice you'll be able to get it. So that's the full G, and that's just building upon the very first chord we learned. So that's the first chord we're going to do today. The second chord we're going to do is the C chord. Now we have done the C chord before, but that also was like a simplified version of the C. So if you remember, the C chord we learned at the beginning of this course was, we had to take our first finger and we put it in the first fret of the B string, so the second string. Okay, and that time we only strummed the bottom 3 strings, like that. Now the same as the G, this is only half the chord. In fact, the C chord looks like this and is a 5-string chord. Okay, so we're still going to keep this first finger where it is, that's still part of the chord. But we're going to take our middle finger, our second finger, and we're going to add that to the second fret of the D string. So we're going to leave the G string open, then we're going to add our middle finger to the second fret of the D string. And then we're going to take our third finger and we're going to add that to the third fret of the string above, the A string. So we'll have our third finger in the third fret of the A string, our second finger in the second fret of the D string, and our first finger where it was before for the C, on the first fret of the B string. And this time we're just going to strum 5 chords. We're going to strum 5 strings. So we're not going to strum this top string, but we're going to strum all the others. Okay, same as before, try and just strum that 4 times. And then take your hand off and just try and remake the chord. So it's first finger on the first fret of the B string, your second finger on the second fret of the D string, and your third finger on the third fret of the A string. Okay? Now, this one is quite similar to the G, and your fingers are quite spread apart. That's why it's the last ones we're sort of covering. But the shape itself isn't too difficult. You might feel a wee bit of a stretch between your fingers when you're first practicing it, but over time that will get easier. Okay, so one more time, it's your first finger on the first fret of the B, your second finger on the second fret of the D, and your third finger on the third fret of the A string. Okay, so each one is like a wee ladder almost. Right? So that's your C, your full C, and this is your G. So we're going to try and put these together along with the D chord that we learned a few weeks ago. Now if we put these 3 chords together, we get the chords from the chorus of 500 Miles by the Proclaimers. So we're just going to go cover the chords for that, show you how to play it, and then that will be you. You'll have the full version of pretty much every beginner's guitar chord, and you'll be able to go away and learn quite a lot of songs with these chords. But the first one we'll do is 500 Miles by the Proclaimers. I'll play it first so you get an idea of how it sounds. So it goes like this. Okay, so it's quite simple, it's just 3 chords, G, C and D. So it starts off in the G, and we're going to strum that chord for 2 bars, which is the same as strumming it for 8 beats. So we're going to strum it 8 times down. So your G again is your third finger on the third fret of the E string, your second finger on the third fret of the lower E string, and your first finger on the second fret of the A string. Okay, and we're going to strum that chord down 8 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I counted that as 2 bars of 4 because there's 4 beats in a bar. So you just count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then count another bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to move to our C, and we're going to just do that for 1 bar, so 4 strums. So your C again is your first finger on the first fret of the B string, your second finger on the second fret of the D string, and your third finger on the third fret of the A string. Okay? And we're going to strum that 4 times, so 1 bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it's going to go to the D chord. So I'll just quickly recap that D chord for you. So the D chord goes, your first finger goes on the second fret of the G string, and then your your third finger goes on the third fret of the B string, and then your second finger goes on the second fret of the E string. Okay, so you're using your 3 fingers, but this time you're only going to strum the bottom 4 strings. Okay? So that's your D, and in the song we're going to strum that for 1 bar, which is the same as strumming it 4 times. So it'll go like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's your D, and then after the D we just go back and we just repeat those exact same chords again. So you'll get the G for 8, the C for 4, for 4, and then you just go back to the G again. So it's 2 bars in the G, 1 bar in the C, and 1 bar in the D, which is the same as strumming the G chord 8 times, the C chord 4 times, and the D chord 4 times. And that's the chorus for 500 Miles. So I'll play it through, I'll repeat the chorus twice for you, that means like if you want, once you get pretty good at playing it, you can come back to this part in the video and try and play it along with me. So here it goes. I'll count in 1 bar and then I'll start, okay? And I'll do it nice and slow so you can practice along with me in the video. It goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Switch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Switch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Back to G. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. To C. 1, 2, 3, 4. To D. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you can just end in the G by strumming it once. Now in the song, I think they repeat that chorus about 4 times. So you can just practice doing that round and round as many times as you can. And the more you practice that, the easier the chords will come. But just nice and slowly at first, practicing each individual chord. And then once you can play each individual chord, just start putting that song together, going really slow, building up speed as you get better. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this course and you've learned some new guitar chords. And I hope to see you in person soon at the Arts Centre or one of our other facilities.